Today I'm reviewing episode 7 of Andor called Announcement, and of course, after the amazing episode 6 where they pulled off the heist, this episode entirely deals with the aftermath and essentially what every character feels and how they deal with it and what to do now, and it essentially sets up for what's to come. And this is actually like the only episode this entire season that is not really a part of an arc, not really coming from somewhere going into something, which is actually quite nice. Now, before I continue with my review, I just want to say I have all 6 episodes previously to this reviewed already, and they're up on my channel if you want to check them out. There's a link in the description, or just browse around on my channel. I do think it's very important to see what I have to say about those episodes going into this one, but let's get into episode 7 now. So this episode actually starts and ends with Syril, where of course he gets the job that his mom and then his uncle arranged for him. But what I found very curious with this interview, he is saying that, he just wanted to uphold the law and that's why he got fired. I'm like, Syril, I understand that you have a very biased view of the situation and I understand what you wanted to do, but come on. This is just completely wrong. Like, you are objectively wrong about what happened. You went against a superior thinking you knew better. You took 12 people to apprehend one guy. Of course, it turned out to be 2 when Luthen joined, but still, it's 12 versus 2 and you still lost. You fucked up. There is a clear reason why you're here right now. Heck, if Syril had actually succeeded, then he would have had Luthen and Cassian in custody right now, answering for their crimes. And Cassian might not have been the biggest target, but Luthen would have been, of course, a very interesting one. And at worst, I think that Syril would have gotten a reprimand for, of course, disobeying a superior's orders. But still, considering that he did get the rebels in that case, then they might have just forgiven him and maybe given him a medal or something, or a commendation, because he did well. But no, he fucked up, and he needs to learn to live with that. And he clearly can't handle it, because also at the beginning, when he's watching the broadcast about Haldani, he's like instantly to his feet. You just know that he's thinking about Cassian all the time. It's like rent-free, dude, rent-free. Especially at the end when he's, searching for something. I'm like, yeah, you're searching for Cassian. We all know this. Now, just like the end of the last episode where we saw that the ISB all gathered and they were informed of what happened, Yularen actually pays them a special visit and tells them what the consequences will be. And I do have the feeling that one of those consequences is the reason that Cassian ends up at Narkina 5, but more on that later. But if anyone doesn't know who Yularen is, he actually appears in the original Star Wars, A New Hope. He is this guy on the table. But he also appears a lot more in the Clone Wars. He is an admiral under Anakin. And he also appears in a very, very good episode of Rebels. So if you haven't seen Clone Wars or Rebels for whatever reason, just watch it. Like, there are some really good tie-ins, and I especially would definitely recommend watching Rebels in relation to Andor, because they take place at around the same time and they deal with similar things. Of course, Rebels is definitely more geared towards kids. Andor is way more adult, but I do think they line up quite nicely and they complement each other. But of course, Dedra is still investigating on her own, and she actually is against the decision of the Empire to take measures, because she's like, that's exactly what the rebels want, and Luthen very much admits to that. So Dedra is quite smart, and I'm also very glad that this is the episode where it actually kind of pays off for her. Despite the fact that Blevin completely wanted to screw her over, Partagas is like, how about you take over for the Milano sector? And Dedra is like, wait, what, me? And Blevin is also like, wait, what, her? Shit, this is not what I meant. I really love how it finally is coming together for Dedra. But, I mean, to be fair, she deserves it. She is, like, very intent on making things happen, even though, as I said in a previous episode, she freely admitted that she didn't really know what to do, what she was doing, but she was searching for something, and it paid off. And Partagas even compliments her for that. So it just goes to show, yeah, Dedra's committed and she really has a goal in mind. And it just goes to show that sometimes when you're so motivated and you really set your mind to something, you can actually achieve a lot. And I think that's actually a good lesson for everyone, I'd say, even though she's a complete bitch and I hate her, but I'm supposed to do that. So I do think that the actress Denise Gough is doing a great job, and the character is very well written. Of course, Mon Mothma has to visit Luthen because she instantly suspects that he is behind Aldhani, and yeah, he is. And initially she acts shocked, and I'm like, Mon, honest to God, this is what it takes to be a rebellion. Now, it does very much line up with her character in Rebels, which I appreciate, because in Rebels, she's also kind of against the more radical actions that Saw does, because Saw and his partisans do a lot more radical stuff, and that actually also just lines up with what she says in Rogue One. But eventually, I do think that Mon Mothma does get towards a point where she is a bit more daring in what she's willing to do to form this rebellion. And I also really love the storyline that kind of starts in this episode with Tay Kolma, her childhood friend, where she's talking to him and he's talking to her about the exact same thing. He's like, oh, my politics might be a bit strong, and then she throws the line back in his face a little later, which is a very good use of having a line and throwing it back at the character. And I just really love that storyline because it very much is the beginnings of Mon fully committing to making a rebellion. Like, she's saving up money, she's gathering people. This is, of course, going to lead to the rebellion, which we know is going to come in the future. And we also see a little bit of that in Rebels. And I really, that's why I say watch Rebels as well. It really lines up well, I think. And honestly, like, this entire storyline from Mon was something I did not expect to see in Andor, but I'm just so happy that we do have it, because it's once again showing us politics in Star Wars that can actually be engaging, because so many times people have criticized the politics in Star Wars, and rightly so, because especially in the prequel movies, it's not very well explained. It's very boring and very convoluted, and it's like, what are we even doing? But I really think that, especially in Clone Wars and Andor, they explain the politics a lot better, and I actually am very engaged with it, despite the fact that in real life I don't care about politics whatsoever, really. But this is a way to make that work just very well, I think. I also really didn't expect Clea to have a more involved job than just be the shopkeep for Luthen, because when we are introduced to Clea, she's just, you know, the shopkeep. And of course she is getting her opinion in with Luthen, like, hey, this, that, and the other with Mon and the driver and whatnot. But in this episode, she actually goes off to meet with Vel. Now, to be fair, it kind of was supposed to be Luthen, or at least I think it was based on the conversation they had. But yeah, Clea meets with Vel, and they talk about the heist on Aldhani, and this confirms that not only Skeen, Nemik, and Termin were killed during this, but also Gorn. And it just sucks, because I actually really like the crew. Maybe not so much Skeen. Of course, Skeen was always a bit of a scumbag, but I like Gorn. I explained why in the previous episode review. But I just really like these characters, and just hearing that like over half of them die, it's like, oh, god damn it. Like, yeah, they pulled off the heist, but at what cost, you know? Because I do think that there's a message in there of like, how much money is a person's life worth? Or if you want to flip it, then you could say that a person can be way more important than any amount of money ever is. And that is probably also why they discussed the need to get rid of Cassian, because Cassian, honestly, I think Cassian would not say anything ever against anyone about Luthen, the heist, or whatnot. He is very good in hiding that. We actually see a little bit of that when he's talking to Marva about it. Like, he is even hiding it from his own mother, so I think he's pretty good in that. But they still are talking about getting rid of him, which is a story point that comes back later in the season, but it's actually very important. We do actually see, though, that Cinta survived. Like, she's still on Aldhani, finally getting off of there, but just before she gets off of there, we do see a Star Destroyer moving in, and that once again reminded me of Rebels, when the same happens to Lothal. And it just indicates, yeah, the Empire is really like tightening their grip. However, that's exactly what the Rebels want, according to Luthen. But anyway, Cassian, of course, goes home to Ferrix to actually tell Marva, hey, I got money, we can get out of here. Let's just take B2 and let's go. But the next morning, Marva realized, no, I actually don't want to leave. Like, I'm here, I'm comfortable here, and I just want to stay here. And I really love Fiona Shaw in this episode. I think she gives a great performance as Marva, because there are so many emotions going through her, and you can very much see it on her face, like some true happiness on her face, like when she's realizing the heist on Aldani was pulled off. She's like, oh, that is so great because it's against the Empire, this faction that actually killed Clem all those years ago, which is a flashback that we see. I was actually not really expecting a flashback, but it was very cool to see, phase 2 clone troopers moving in, indicating the Empire has now fully taken over. But that is, of course, where Clem died, which, oh my god. It's a gut punch, honestly. I will say, though, one little criticism about the flashback. I do think they could have done a little bit of a better job with making Cassian look young, because Cassian looks exactly the same in the present as in the past. And I'm like, there's a 14-year gap, I believe. That's quite a lot of time, honestly. And I do think it probably would have been better just to shave him, clean shave him. That probably already would have gone a long way in making him look younger. But anyway, slight criticism. But back to Fiona Shaw. I really love her performance. The way that she is kind of sad and disappointed that she realizes that Cassian does have to go. She doesn't want him to go, but she knows he has to. And actually, this is the last time they ever see each other, which is also like, if you watch it back, like on rewatch, I think it's way more impactful knowing that they don't see each other again. Before Cassian goes, though, he does pay Bix a visit, and he is very careful with what he's telling her. Like, he's not telling her anything of where he was, where he's going. He's just saying, here's the debt, this is it, goodbye. Which is smart from him, but eventually does screw over Bix. If he had left any kind of hint of where he was going or whatnot, that would have helped the Empire find him, of course, but that probably also would have helped Bix not get tortured in the next couple of episodes. We'll get to that. Oh my god. But yeah, if Cassian had only told Bix that he was going to Miami, Niamos, then Bix could have had something to tell. No. Yeah, honestly, look, I have to address the elephant in the room. It is very obviously Miami. Everyone has pointed it out. It does stick out a little bit. It is kind of funny, though, because the score is also a bit weird. Like, I honestly think that the score for most of the show is very good. Like, there's a really good score going on. But the music playing when we get introduced to Niamos, I'm like, oh, that's just not Star Wars. That's weird. But anyway, apparently he already has a girl, and he's living there with her, where I'm like, how much time has passed? Because is Cassian kind of like a ladies' man that he can just get a girl very quickly? Or does this indicate that actually some time has passed? Either way, doesn't matter. What does matter is he gets apprehended by the Empire. Of course he does. And this is what I said earlier with Lauren, tightening his grip. Like, he's saying something about how they deal with prison sentences and stuff like that, because Cassian gets a 6-year sentence that actually would be different if it had only been a couple of days ago before Aldani, but this is after Aldani, and this is after all the new restrictions have been put in place, and that's why Cassian is going for 6 years. So, Cassian, that's your own fault, actually. But that's about all I can say about episode 7 of Andor. I think it's a really solid one where it does a great job at showing how everyone is dealing with the aftermath, and, of course, how the show is going to go forward now, because, well, Cassian is going to go into prison for a bit. But, yeah, it also really gives me a feel that what happened on Aldani had a huge impact on everyone. It's not just something like, oh, just a rebel attack and we're just going to brush it off. No, the fact that there are so many people affected by this, that there are people investigating, I love that that is really impacting everything. And it sets things in motion. Like, it sets Mon in motion in terms of doing more, because it makes people realize that action needs to be taken, both from the Empire in restricting and both in terms of people wanting to rebel against the Empire, because it shows it can be done. And I that's the thing, that's another reason I love the Eye so much, because it really does have an impact, and it started something. Please let me know your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Please subscribe to my channel for more Star Wars content. You can do that right here by clicking the bell. Otherwise, maybe you're interested in another video, you can click right here for another video. Like, just click on it, click on either of these things. It's helpful for me. Like the video, that kind of stuff. Thank you for watching. Look out for my next review. And of course, until then, May the Force be with you.